With XDefiant now out and in the wild, we've got a lot of guides and informative content on the way for your gaming experience. But today, I want to take a look at a little guide to help you figure out what's the best faction for you, because with 5, there's not a whole ton of offering that it becomes like confusing or overwhelming, but there's also enough differences and solid options that it can become tough to pick one select favorite perhaps. But today, I want to run down each of these factions, their strengths, and where you may best find success with each of them. So as we go along, drop your thoughts down below, and do me a huge favor, not only drop a like if you enjoyed the video, but if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe for more XDefiant coverage along with other FPS content. We are getting in the midst of a lot of stuff upcoming. I'd love to have in the community as we chase down 600,000 subscribers. And also, make sure to check out my friends over at Gamer Advantage, but more on that a little later. For now though, let's take a look at the best factions in XDefiant for you. So starting out with just a brief rundown of what all you can expect to see through each of these factions. Libertad, you have a passive that is a healing regeneration, an active of the Biovita boost, and the El Remedio, where the boost is a gas canister that will instantly start health regeneration, but it can also affect your nearby allies in a certain vicinity. The Remedio is going to heal friendlies until destroyed or canceled, and the ultimate will be the Medico Supreme, which is a medical backpack that in a certain radius provides a boost of health to 200 HP rather than 100 for a small duration of time. Echelon, the passive is low profile, so agents do not show up on the minimap, which is a ghosted feature. Your active of the Intel suit and the digital ghillie suit offer unique abilities as well, where the Intel suit will share the location of nearby enemies with your team, similar to Recon's Vision Pulse and Black Ops 3, but for everyone and every 30 seconds. The digital ghillie suit will render the agent nearly invisible. You can still be seen if you're moving or aiming though. And then sonar goggles, as your ultimate will reveal enemies and have the ability to hunt them down with the 3rd echelon 5.7 pistol. Now that's a one shot in the upper body in close range, 2 shots to the extremities it seems, and at a further distance, but it only lasts around 10 to 15 seconds. But you have a total of 50 rounds, so if you're really just popping off, you can go to work with this thing. The Cleaners, the passive is incendiary rounds, so every single round you end up having will have that fire damage that is associated with it. Your actives of the Incinerator drone and the Firebomb are available as a napalm delivering drone that burns everything in its path, and the Firebomb detonates a Molotov cocktail, causing explosive damage and lighting the area on fire. Now this one has a bit of an activation delay, so while it's great for breaking contested capture zones or say an occupy zone, just know that when you activate it, the animation will have to happen first, leaving you vulnerable for about 1 to 2 seconds. Then the ultimate of the Purifier is a flamethrower that's a one shot. You touch the enemies with it, they'll burn up. The Phantoms, you have a passive of 120 HP total, whereas normally you only have 100. And the actives, you have the Mag Barrier and Blitz Shield. The Mag Barrier is an electromagnetic shield that will block incoming enemy fire, and the Blitz Shield is just kind of like a riot shield you can run people over with if you get in a close enough vicinity. The ultimate of the Aegis is a plasma shield that is combined with an electro scatter gun for close quarters combat, which is insanely good for escort or objective based modes. Like if you have a team and you use it properly, it's almost guaranteed to be a final push ultimate. And then finally, DeadSec, that passive you can print more items, which is refilling things like grenades and devices. Your active, you have the Spider Bot and the Hijack, where the Spider Bot will deploy a face hugging Spider Bot that will stun the nearest foe, which is an easy kill if you follow it. And then Hijack, you can hack enemy deployed abilities to make them your own, which is good for placed items like the Mag Barrier. And finally, the Lockout ultimate disables the enemy HUD, minimap, and abilities in the radius of activation. Can be pretty powerful, but it's reliant on being in close quarter scenarios. So basic understanding of what's on offer out of the way, how do we get to ranking these in any sort of capacity? Well, I think it can be fair to break them down categorically. Now, full transparency and a sort of disclaimer, these are my subjective rankings. So if you find one better than the other or something that fits your playstyle better, that's totally fine, but these are my recommendations attempting to be as objective in their strengths and weaknesses as possible. Starting with the passive, let's talk about the best ones here with this. Out of the options of passive for health regeneration to you and your teammates, a ghosted effect on minimaps, incendiary rounds, a slight HP boost, and the ability to print more devices, I think I'd personally take in this order. Phantom's 120 HP passive, the passive health regeneration, ghosted, incendiary rounds, and then printing more items. To me, from the bottom up here, printing items is cool, but on a 10-ish second cooldown, for a lot of scenarios, that's still a lot of time that you might not be able to get replacements back in a single life. If you're into the action, you might not get many back in that life unless you're going on a tear. Additionally, if you've reprinted more ammo and magazines, I feel like it might be a little bit more worthwhile, but it appears to only be devices and sort of grenades like that. Incendiary Incendiary rounds next. They're mad annoying, I'll give you that, so it might be fun to use these against enemies and just annoy them, but aside from picking up a trade or two here and there after you die, it doesn't really help you too much, in my opinion, than a just straight up gunfight. Echelon's ghosted feature, while nice, isn't all that important, even if you're playing stealthy to a degree. I mean, we don't have UAVs or anything here that you're showing up constantly on the minimap, so if you're going for a flank or something like that, unless you shoot your gun, you're still not going to show up on the minimap. Passive health regeneration, though, if you've seen any of my COD stuff, you know I'm a big fan of this in general. If I'm getting into the action, I want to be able to get my health back as quickly as possible to get back into that fight, and if I can passively heal teammates too, that's even better. But frankly, talking health, isn't it just better to have more health? Phantom's 120 HP creates enough of an imbalance in gunfights that I need to take a bullet or two more to die depending on where shots are placed by my enemy. So yeah, while regenerating my health is nice, having more of it might just be better. So that's why that's my preferred here in terms of passives, but that's passives. It's not really situational use items or really the stuff that you're like advertised as why you should use a certain faction. As for active ratings, for me, best to worst, Echelon comes along with the Intel suit and Digital Ghillie suit. Phantoms comes along with a Mag Barrier and Blitz Shield. Libertad comes along with a Biovita boost and the El Remedio. The Cleaners come along with the Incinerator Drone and Firebomb, and DeadSec comes along with Spiderbot and Hijack. Now, that's my ratings from best to worst there, but talking worst to best, working backwards, DeadSec's Spiderbot is incredibly annoying, sure, but its speed isn't all that fast, and it's only gonna hug one enemy's face, so you're limited in terms of efficiency with it per se. And Hijack, again, as mentioned when we went over it, this situational use item that in my playtime I didn't find as worthwhile as other items. The Cleaners, the Firebomb, when killed is insanely annoying, but again, that activation delay makes it something that is a little too situational in my opinion. You need to be close enough to get that radius in the lethal zone, but you also need to have enemies that don't realize where you are or aren't shooting at you until you can get that off. And again, if you're getting that close, up close and personal, 1 to 2 seconds of that activation delay is a lot of time that enemies could be shooting at you. The Incinerator Drone is definitely the better option of the two if you ask me, creating a way to cut off some lanes, but unless it's a direct hit, it won't be as lethal as you maybe hope. Libertad, big healing fan, so I always stuck with the Biovita boosts, but if you're playing the team play, there's better options for sure. Phantoms, that Mag Barrier, while it's destroyed in about a mag of ammo, it can absolutely prove itself to be incredibly useful, granting temporary cover that is one way. You can shoot through it, but your enemies cannot. So genuinely great for most scenarios, cutting off lanes, pushing or holding objectives, you name it. Alternatively, that Blitz Shield I think is less useful. Like, I'd take the Mag Barrier 100% of the time, but it can still be fun to use. Then Echelon's Intel suit and Digital Ghillie suit. Well, the Ghillie suit is great for solo play, go invisible for a bit, but honestly, I think that the Intel suit can almost be problematic. If you're running a squad of even 2, you can alternate this where enemies will be pinged and you can see them through walls and everything to a certain radius. And the crazy part is you get that every 30 seconds. So while it lasts 15 seconds, you can see enemies highlighted. Then when your recharge starts, you can have a teammate pop theirs and you can see where this is going. Up to 3 teammates, and you completely negate the effects of that cooldown because teammates will have them as well. So for me, that's my top choice of an active. But ultimates, worst to best, DeadSec's Lockout, Cleaner's Purifier, and then honestly I'd say tied for best is a 3-way tie between Libertad's Medico Supreme, Echelon's Sonar Goggles, and the Phantom's Aegis. Now, why? That's where we need to break this down a little bit. DeadSec's Lockout, while proximity-based, is cool, but I don't think that it's enough of a deterrent as a sort of screw everyone else up ultimate. With its charge rate, I just don't think the result is powerful enough, for me at least. The Purifier, while fun for the Cleaners, I feel like with a limited time that you have with it, you'll have to get into a really close quarter scenario where there's a lot of players to really make it worthwhile for that charge rate. Now, for that 3-way tie for first, it truly comes down to how you want to play, because I would take each of these 3 as a top ultimate just based off of whatever situation I'm in. Libertad's Medico Supreme can be insane for objective play, holding down a point or zone because you in that radius of activated area are boosted nonstop to 200 HP, making you nearly invincible for a bit. Like, yes, you can die, but it is so much harder. That's a huge boost in some in-game scenarios, like if you're trying to hold down a last occupy zone to make it to that win in a close match. Echelon's Sonar Goggles, I think, can be great if you're a solo player hunting for kills. I mean, you already have a great active ability that helps out your entire team for radar, so why not take something for yourself here? Highlight enemies and use that one-shot pistol. And then Phantom's Aegis, if you're an objective player, this is the ultimate for you. But in terms of solo play, it leaves you vulnerable if players can get inside that bubble, so you really need it as a team thing. Your enemies clearing out enemies, shooting outside of it while progressing that objective, but that bubble shield can be huge. So my personal faction ratings, I'd say that Echelons and Phantoms are tied for the top spot, Libertad a very close second, and then Cleaners for third, that incendiary rounds just being a nuisance to enemies, and DedSec is last, but again, that's just personally speaking. I think that each has their own strengths and weaknesses. Like, no category has the same top results when you look at how I've structured this. And that's by design. You make one clear standout, it's all anyone will use. Instead, I do think that there's that initial balance between consciously considering what type of play that you want to do and where the factions excel. Of my top 3, which I choose is really dependent on the mode and who I'm playing with. Like, if I'm playing an objective mode, Phantom's Aegis and Mag Barrier is absolutely elite. But if I'm, say, playing Hot Shot, Occupy, or I'm like on the defensive end of Escort where I really want kills, I'll take something like Echelon's Sonar Goggles and Intel Suit. And if I'm playing solo, well, I'll take Libertad's Healing, because I know if nobody's got me with additional team benefits and coordinated strikes, I got me with healing. So that's my recommendations here in what I would say for the best factions in XDefiant right now. When more come along later on in further seasons, of course, that may disrupt the balance here of how I think these play out, but for me personally, that's what I would say. For you, again, it really comes down to recognizing how you want to play and what can best help you out in that regard. There are more objective-based factions, there are more kill-hungry and in-the-action-based factions, but again, you have to recognize which one works best for you, but those are my recommendations. So that is where we're going to wrap it up. Before we do, though, make sure to check out my friends over at Gamer Advantage for what I firmly believe are the best fluid glasses on the market. I've worked with these guys for 3 years now and cannot recommend them enough. They're the most lightweight, comfortable, and durable frames out there as far as I've used, and I definitely think they've helped my daily productivity. Now, full transparency, they're a bit more of an investment, but I think that your vision is absolutely worth investing into, especially if you're like me, you're looking at a monitor, phone, you're gaming for a good chunk of the day, like I am with XDefiant right now, grinding it out. So if you guys would like to learn more, at the very least, I'd recommend checking out their website where they can better break down the science and all the specifics way better than I could, but what I can personally say is I'd highly recommend them. So if you'd like to learn more, check the link in the description below, and if you'd like to pick something up for yourself, use code Espresso to get 10% off your entire order. But for now, that is where we're going to wrap it up. Let me know your thoughts on what you think of the best factions in XDefiant, what your favorites are, what your least favorites are, whatever the case, drop your thoughts. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe for more XDefiant coverage here as we gear up for, honestly, a lot more content still on the way that I think can prove beneficial to your gameplay experience. But for now, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.